Right now, you have fake money in your wallet. That $20 bill? It's worth nothing. The coins in your pocket? Completely worthless metal. And somehow, this worthless paper and metal controls your entire life. But it wasn't always this way. For thousands of years, money was real. It had actual value. So, how did we go from trading gold and silver to accepting colorful paper? And why does everyone just go along with it? The story of money is the story of the greatest trick ever pulled on humanity. And in the next 10 minutes, you'll learn how a simple trade between neighbors became the most powerful force on Earth. By the end, you'll never look at your wallet the same way again. "9,000 years ago, there were no stores, no banks, no currency. If you wanted something, you had to make it yourself or trade for it directly. This was called the barter system, and it worked fine for small communities. But barter had a massive problem. Let's say you're a wheat farmer and you need shoes. You find a shoemaker, but he doesn't want wheat. He wants meat. So now you need to find someone who wants wheat and has meat. Then trade your wheat for meat. Then trade the meat for shoes. This could take weeks. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants problem. Both people in a trade need to want what the other person has at the exact same time. As societies grew larger, this became impossible. So communities started choosing certain items that everyone would accept in trade. In China, people used cowrie shells. The Chinese character for money today still includes the shell symbol. Some African tribes used salt, which was so valuable that Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt instead of coins. That's where we get the phrase, worth your salt. But the most popular choice was cattle. Think about it. Cows provide milk, they reproduce to make more cows, and if you're desperate, you can eat them. They were like walking bank accounts. The Latin word for money, pecunia, comes from pecus, which means cattle. But cattle die. They get sick. They're hard to transport. And you can't exactly give someone half a cow for a loaf of bread. Humanity needed something better, something that would change civilization forever. Around 3000 BC, someone in ancient Mesopotamia made a discovery that would echo through history. They realized that metal could be the perfect form of money. Unlike grain, it doesn't rot. Unlike cattle, it doesn't die. You can melt it down, reshape it, divide it into exact amounts, and it keeps its value. The first metals used were bronze and copper, but the real game changers were gold and silver. These metals were rare enough to be valuable, but common enough to use for trade. They didn't rust or corrode, and most importantly, they were beautiful. Humans have always been attracted to shiny objects. By 650 BC, the Kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey created the first official coins. These weren't just chunks of metal. They were stamped with official government symbols. This stamp meant the government guaranteed the weight and purity of the metal. For the first time, you didn't need to weigh and test every piece of metal in a transaction. The Romans perfected this system. Their silver denarius became the backbone of Mediterranean trade for centuries. The word salary comes from the Latin word for salt. But Roman soldiers were actually paid in denarii. One denarius was a day's wage for a skilled worker. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. What's the oldest coin you've ever seen? I'm curious to see what historical money you've encountered. This system of gold and silver coins spread across the world. Spanish pieces of 8 became international currency. Chinese silver taels dominated Asian trade. For over 2,000 years, money meant metal, real, tangible, valuable metal. And then everything changed. In the 11th century China, merchants faced a problem. Coins were made of iron and were incredibly heavy. Large transactions required wheelbarrows full of coins. The Chinese government's solution was revolutionary: paper money. But this wasn't just an IOU. These paper notes were backed by the government's promise to exchange them for real metal coins. The paper itself was worthless, but it represented real value stored elsewhere. This was the birth of representative money. Europe thought this was insane. How could worthless paper have value? But by the 1600s, European goldsmiths were doing something similar. When people deposited gold with them for safekeeping, they issued paper receipts. Soon, people were trading these receipts instead of going to get their actual gold. The receipts were easier to carry and safer to transport. Banks realized they could issue more receipts than they had gold, as long as not everyone came to withdraw their gold at the same time. This was called fractional reserve banking. The Bank of England, founded in 1694, began issuing the first real paper currency. These notes weren't backed by gold sitting in a vault. They were backed by government debt. The government owed money to the bank, and the bank issued notes based on that debt. This system reached its peak in 1944 with the Bretton Woods Agreement. Every major currency in the world was tied to the US dollar, and the US dollar was tied to gold at $35 per ounce. For the first time, the entire world economy operated on one standard. This golden age lasted 27 years, and then it ended with a single television broadcast that most people have never heard of. August 15, 1971. President Richard Nixon appeared on television and said something that changed money forever. He announced that the United States would no longer exchange dollars for gold. Just like that, the gold standard was dead. This wasn't supposed to be permanent. Nixon called it a temporary measure to protect the dollar from speculators. But temporary became forever. From that moment on, the US dollar was backed by nothing except the government's promise that it was worth something. Most people don't realize how radical this was. For 4,000 years, money had been tied to something real. Gold, silver, cattle, shells, real objects with real value. Nixon turned money into pure faith. If people stopped believing the dollar was valuable, it would become worthless paper overnight. But here's the shocking part. It worked. Without the constraint of gold backing, governments could print money whenever they needed it. Economic recessions could be fought by creating new money. Infrastructure projects could be funded instantly. The global economy exploded in size and complexity. However, this power came with a hidden cost. Since 1971, the US has printed more money than in all of previous American history combined. The purchasing power of the dollar has declined by over 90%. What cost $1 in 1971 costs over $6 today. Other countries followed the same path. Every major currency became fiat money, backed only by government decree. The word fiat comes from Latin meaning, let it be done. Money became whatever government said it was. While this was happening, something else was brewing. Computer networks were connecting the world, and a few programmers started asking a dangerous question. If money is just information, why do we need governments to control it? January 3, 2009. While the world was dealing with the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, an anonymous programmer named Satoshi Nakamoto launched Bitcoin. This wasn't just another payment system. This was money without governments, without banks, without any central authority controlling it. Bitcoin solved a problem that had plagued digital money for decades. How do you prevent someone from spending the same digital coin twice without a central authority keeping track? Nakamoto's solution was brilliant. Instead of one central ledger, everyone on the network keeps a copy of every transaction ever made. This blockchain technology made Bitcoin impossible to counterfeit or double spend. But Bitcoin was just the beginning. Today, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies, each experimenting with different approaches to money. Some focus on privacy, others on speed, others on smart contracts that can execute automatically. Meanwhile, governments aren't standing still. Central banks around the world are developing their own digital currencies. China has already launched the digital yuan. The European Central Bank is testing a digital euro. These aren't cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They're government-controlled digital money that could eventually replace physical cash entirely. The COVID pandemic accelerated this shift beyond anyone's imagination. Suddenly, cash seemed dirty and dangerous. Digital payments became normal. Governments discovered they could transfer money directly to citizens' accounts with the push of a button. Money became more digital, more trackable, and more controllable than ever before. So where does this leave us? We've gone from shells and cattle to gold and silver to paper promises to digital bits of code. Each transformation seemed impossible until it happened. Each change rewrote the rules of how society operates. The next chapter is being written right now. Will we see a return to money backed by real assets? Will artificial intelligence manage our currencies? Will money become so seamless that it disappears entirely from our daily awareness? One thing is certain. The story of money is far from over, and whatever comes next will be as revolutionary as everything that came before. The only question is whether you'll be ready for it. What do you think comes next for money? Will cash disappear completely? Or will people demand a return to something more tangible? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world.